Hello, everybody. This is Dom from Upstate Supernatural. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in for a brand new episode of our paranormal corner, our paranormal stories. And I have actually with us today Scott Litaea, my paranormal corner, and
Hey.
Gian Temperilli. And just to give you guys a little bit of a glance, there you go. And if you guys would like to just kind of start out with talking about, how you guys possibly met or how you guys got in contact with each other.
Well, Johnny, if you want to go ahead and go first.
Yeah, I got two different voices going on yet. I don't know. I'm trying to turn down one of these and figure out which one to tune in on layer-wise. But yeah. Hey, thanks guys for having me on today, and yeah, thanks Scott, thanks Dom.
And how did you and Scott kind of get in contact with each other within the paranormal? Like, how did you guys get started working together within the paranormal?
Yeah, just at different events. Actually, it started at the Glen Tavern Inn. Debbie, well, it was slated as a Mark and Debbie Constantino event, and it was Con 11 back at the Glen Tavern Inn a couple of years ago. And, Debbie did it solo. And it was, one event that she was doing on her own. So she was looking for a little bit of a collaboration. She had Amy Goodwin there, Chad Lindbergh, Jason Gates, and we just kind of got together as a group, and then our family clicked it off really quickly with Scott, and it just was one of those organic things that came together where, we just kind of spent all the time hanging out in the rooms and everything. Well, David Oman was there, and so we just, we're a tight-knit group, tried to make everything as easy for Debbie to kind of coordinate things for her and organize things for her and take up any slack she needed. Scott was an integral part of that, and so we just kind of helped out and became a big support group and all got together in that way.
And Scott, what do you have any memorable experiences from that investigation?
You know what? We had a lot of EVPs from the location, and what we did is, on my paranormal corner, there's actually some EVPs from the location that we got from there. The biggest one that reminds me of it is the man with the hat. When John and Shirley did the video for liveparanormal.com, there was information we got about a guy with a hat, and there was a hat that was actually in one of the rooms that was behind one of the walls. When they were re-renovating the room, they found a hat. So that was one of the big things. I've actually got an EVP of a bell from a train, and you said there used to be a train that used to drop off people from Hollywood up that way. Like Rin Tin Tin was there, John Wayne. This was a place where a lot of celebrities would get out of L.A. and go up to, just to get away from the Hollywood scene.
And now you guys have done more than the Glen Tavern, right? You've done other locations as well together?
John?
Oh, did I turn off the wrong speaker?
Yeah, you just want to have the Skype one on. It'll make things easier for you.
Yeah, I got one audio source going. It doesn't sound like I got the right audio source.
Well, the other location we did together was the Queen Mary.
I got two different, everything's about 20 seconds behind, and one of them's 20 seconds forward, and I can't tell which one.
Yeah, if you want to mute the YouTube, and then you'll be able to hear us right through Skype. That should be the right audio for you.
Maybe that's what it is. Okay, now I'm just hearing the part about YouTube, so let me mute that.
All right, you can hear us. You can hear us, okay?
Yeah, now I got you.
Okay.
Okay, are we in sync now?
Yep.
Yep.
And
okay, cool. Okay, where do we leave off?
Yeah, Scott was talking about the Queen Mary because I was asking, were there other locations that you guys have also investigated together with?
Yeah, the Queen Mary. We did Tombstone, Arizona. We all got together there. That was a whole story in itself. About I think a lot of people have read about that. And there was somebody there that took a lot of people's money and didn't deliver. But it was a good time where everybody got together. The town, unfortunately, didn't weren't honored on their end of what they were told they were going to have happen. But then they opened up the field to everybody to. The participants were there. They opened up all the locations anyway, so everybody had a great time and came together. And so hopefully someday that'll open back up for that location. But that was another location we got together with Scott, and basically just even though you couldn't investigate the entire time, it was one of those things that we got together with our family and just made the best of things too. So I mean, it just brought us all closer together.
And Scott, what did you guys happen to find down in Tombstone? I don't think I've ever actually asked you about it.
Actually, we had OC Soul Searchers there, and they were able to rent out the birdcage for the night, and just kind of really made a big difference in it because there was a lot of EVPs that we captured from there, as well as we had an orb picture that you could totally see the energy spike within inside the circle, and it was captured. And I just recently downloaded the the audio footage from it, which was real interesting. But the birdcage, or something about that location that's just really, really super active. I asked the question, was Doc Holliday ever here? And I got a clear EVP response saying yes, and that was at the courthouse.
Yeah, I've always been fascinated with Tombstone and that location for sure. I mean, it's got a lot of history to it. And what kind of got you in the field initially, John?
Yeah, well, I co-authored a book by Peter James, and he was the legendary Fox sighting psychic paranormal investigator. And he was on Weekly before a new show at the time called The X-Files, but all through the early 90s. And Peter James was the guy with the white hair and the black mustache. And anybody probably younger than 35 may not remember Peter, but yeah, it was a show that was a primetime show, and he was the weekly psychic correspondent. And it was somebody that my wife and I, well, back then we were just dating, and we used to watch religiously on Friday nights, was the show Sightings with Peter. And when he went on the Queen Mary and he had the first initial conversation with Jackie, the pool area talking ghost child, we tuned in every week just to watch Peter alone as he investigated Alcatraz, private residences, and before internet, where, those places that they would fly him out to, drive him out to an hour and a half by town car. And one of those cases was Heartland Ghost Sally's house. And so he gained a lot of notoriety for his work on investigation of that particular case. And it was, the sightings team would go to those areas and off of phone leads, they'd go into Dusty Dewey Decimal Systems and find out about the tragic deaths of people in these locations and the hauntings of the homeowners at that time, and bring Peter in. So he would have no prior knowledge of anything. And so it was one of those people for my wife and I that we could tangibly look at and kind of hold in your back pocket as like, yeah, this is like the real guy. This is a real proven psychic. He's not just in a studio talking to everybody's aunt and uncle and everything's real vague. I mean, they were backing it up with evidential captures and things on the show at the time. So it was kind of revolutionary programming. You're seeing it more now with like Dead Files and things. But it was somebody that was proven to us. And so years later, this is now, coming up in April 26th. That's going to be 9 years ago that was something that my wife and I wanted to do. It was something different back then for our 10-year wedding anniversary. And my wife's looked into, paranormal tours aboard the Queen Mary. And Peter James had come back to give the tours. So we took his tours, and he was a part of every aspect of it, and we couldn't believe it. We're just like, oh my God, we don't get excited about celebrity, but when it was Peter James, we're like, God, dude, this is cool, and just such a consummate legend in the field and professional. And so, I wrote him that, this was awesome and everything. We showed the DVD that, he had on his tour. We purchased it, and my daughter watched it. And back then she was 8 years old, just turned 8. And so Sophia, who unfortunately can't be a part of the show today, she's, under the weather, but we'll reschedule something. But, I wrote to Peter. I'm like, she started to indicate to my wife and I, like, I want to go on that tour. I want to talk to the ghost girl. And I'm thinking, that I know the field and that probably wouldn't be too welcome or receptive, but let me try Peter anyway. It is the Queen Mary. It's a different vessel. It's a wartime ship at one time where people were serving the country, and at other times it was a luxury liner. So people on their best times in their life, for certain passengers, it was certainly a memorable place and a warm feeling. Not one, Trans-Allegheny or anything like that. So I thought, let me try it. And then Peter said, not only can she attend my tour, I'll have Sophia call out to Jackie. So we took the tour a month later, and unfortunately that was Peter's final tour before his passing. But after that tour, I wrote to him how memorable it was, how great it was, and how much Sophia loved him, and being a part of every aspect of that tour. He wrote back, well, John, I love the way you write. Can you help me write my book? As I wrote him a real long letter and everything about, like, I look like some kind of psycho fan probably writing this out, but the way he read it and wrote it, I let him know, well, I did graduate from the University of Laverne with a degree in broadcast journalism, had a extensive degree in syntax and grammar, and so he liked the way I put everything together just in the letter alone. And so he said, well, I, of course, said yes. And he started sending me file after file of all of his years worth of notation and his paranormal investigations, which were behind the scenes of a lot of it, and just his thoughts and theories on afterlife. And the book's Heaven Can You Hear Me by Peter James. And it just brought me great solace to know that the book's out in the hands of his fans. But essentially, that's how our family became involved in the field, is by Peter being such a legend in the field. It was one of those things that, by default of him being such a legend, and Peter passing and me getting his book out there, that, we were included in a lot of paranormal investigations and carte blanche of the ship aboard the Queen Mary. And, Sophia, at the time, we lived in an actively haunted residence too, and we had members of the field help us with clearing and quelling what we had, and a lot of psychics verifying a lot of what we had. And so it was one of those things that Sophia at the time, Rob here at liveparanormal.com, he offered me a show for about a year and a half, and I kept turning it down. I'm like, well, Peter's great and everything, but I don't have the time to do this. To research guests and put questions together and everything. It's just, I kept passing on it. But Sophia really wanted a show because she wanted to help people at the time the way they helped us, and just really became immersed in the programming and everything paranormal. And I said, well, at that time, my daughter's 12 years old, but wants to have a show and help other families and kids with psychic ability issues and people with home hauntings, how to bring experts in and help out, with their cases. And he said, well, try it out. And I said, okay, well, let me look into seeing who could come on. And Alexandra Halser was Sophia's first guest. The Booth brothers are second guest. Mark and Debbie Constantino are third. And it was just like, once they found out it was for Sophia, they started booking themselves. So it was one of those things that, like, this 12-year-old had all these major players in the field of the paranormal, and then these families calling in, kids calling in initially with psychic ability issues they couldn't really talk about to their parents. They were calling in. So it was a 2-hour show where these people would call in about what they had and would write to me back when we had some things happen, and some people writing to Peter that thought he was still alive, and the family had me put together his tribute page after he passed away, but people thought he was still alive and going, Peter, I have this, and that, and I would write them back because it paralleled a lot of what we had happen in our residence. And so it was taking those people and saying, hey, would you want to come on this show and talk about some of that? And Sophia would Skype and game with some of them, doing some gaming. And then some of that would kind of come out in their conversations with the kids. Hey, I think I just heard something again. Sophia would say, well, try this, try that. And so in little ways, she was kind of counseling some of the kids. And then some of the families, I'd talk to. And so that's where it organically came about, her show on liveparanormal.com that airs every Saturday. and now she's going to be going on 5 years of broadcasting in June. And she's going to be 17 years old and started at 12 and didn't expect any of this. And I'm doing all those things I said I'd never do, sending out all the invites, doing all the every week. And so, but it's for Sophia, and it turned out to be a really great thing.
No, I mean that's absolutely fantastic. Like the whole occurrence of what drove you within the field and kind of how it perspired, you know what I mean? To meet the guy that was kind of a inspiration to you, and then being pulled in to start working with him. You know what I mean? That's awesome. Absolutely awesome.
Right. Yeah, no, Peter was the best, and just to know him, and it's like my wife said about Peter James too. It's like when you shook his hand, he grabbed your hand and he pulled you over to other people in the group. He didn't want to look like he was a standout in any way, shape, or form, so he brought you over to be on the same level as everybody else. And equally, she said, you notice like you feel like you've known him a million years, and it was like, yeah, the second you met him, you just felt like you knew him, and it instantly all that celebrity or anything that you felt for him, he didn't want any of that. So it's just like, he could erase that in his own special way and just be on a common ground with you, and that was great too. So I mean, yeah, we've had a very fortunate, and also too, when it comes to paranormal investigating, and Sophia being young and being a parent, you tend to know that if you keep things from your kids, they're going to find out ways to do it behind your back, So that's like if the kids have sleepovers, they're going to crack out the Ouija board, or they're going to, try doing their little conjuring things or whatever in their own ways, or, doing it around the house, EVP sessions, things like that. So we always wanted to have something that if Peter felt that the Queen Mary was okay with us, for our family, then that was an okay location for us. And Sophia wanted to go on an overnight with my wife and I. We were invited there, and we said no, because it's a different location. So as parents, we had to kind of be a little bit restrictive on some things, but foster a little bit of what our passion is for the field, even at a young age. But we've had a protective bubble of a lot of the locations that we go, and remotely, we have a lot of psychics that are proven within the field that have offered a lot of protection. So that's not something that every family has, and we've been fortunate enough to have that type of measure too along the way.
And Scott, have you've done the Queen Mary? I know you guys were talking about that earlier. And Sophia and John were there as well when you were doing it. Did you get to experience the little girl in the pool?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That was one of the coolest, I think, location spots, and one of the most active, I think, personally. When I was there, and Sophia took me to the back, there's a back room where the dressing rooms are, where they used to change. And Sophia said, there's something back here, just, kind of be careful. And when I did the count game that Chad Lindbergh had taught me at the Glen Tavern, and I actually got a response. I said 3 numbers, 5, 6, 7, and then I said, and the spirit will say, and the actual Ovilus 3 and the SB7 at the same time said, and 8. At the same time. You can actually hear both of them go off at the same time. I'll actually, after the show, I'll post some of the evidence, so if anyone wants to listen to it, they can actually go onto my Facebook page or even onto myparanormalcorner.com. There's actual listings of all the EVPs from the location there. The other thing is that I actually reached out to Jackie, and I said, Jackie, do you have a message, or would you like to say hi? And there's actually a physical response, or an EVP response to say hi. And one of the things I think John could even tell you is, even from the Queen Mary episode when you guys were there with Ghost Adventures, they had said that they didn't believe that there was an actual spirit of Jackie, but that it's possibly something else. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's that, and what wasn't shown on the Ghost Adventures Queen Mary episode was Sophia let us know after it was filmed, and it doesn't show it in the take, but Zach actually picked up on a shadow figure at the other end of the pool area that was dark and ominous. And Sophia had felt it too, but let us know in the car that she not only saw it, but she said that it I don't know how it communicated it, but not verbally, but she knew explicitly that if she was to address it and say that it was there, she said it was going to make her cry. So there was some way it was projecting onto her. Look, if you say anything about my presence being here, it was weird because when they were there doing the Ghost Adventures episode, I've never felt so much activity in there. We had the door slammed. Zach was immediately on it and looked down that hall both directions, and there's no way anybody could have scattered there that quickly. But we've never had anything really move in there. We've heard Jackie ourselves, and there's been something recently with that. And we were talking to Sid Schultz and Mary Holt of Paranormal Boot Camp events last night. They were asking some questions about Camarillo, and that came up. And Sid said, has there been something different in the Queen Mary pool area about in the last 5 years? And that's where it was like you get the chill moment where it's like, yeah, Sophia was talking about that. And, everybody's been picking up on that. And then Mike and Terry, there are some investigators mentioned once, Sophia is real apprehensive about going in that area where she never used to be before, and just because of that. And they felt that because people go deadheading a lot to, they'll go to, Trans-Allegheny, Pennhurst, then go to Stanley, then go over, another location, then the Queen Mary and on something else. Every weekend they may be at some different event that they may be leaving something behind at every different place that they go to. And so that was just a theory that, like, this could be from somewhere else. Or Sid and Mary were talking last night that some of the guards have been finding candles that have been burned out around
Wow.
like people are doing conjuring sessions and things of that type. So it's hard to say, but there is something new introduced in that pool area. But with Scott, we did the Beyond Expo. It was a benefit for the Children with Down Syndrome Foundation, for the Bell Foundation. So you co-hosted the private tour that we took attendees around on that, paid the extra donation for the foundation. And you had Debbie with you. We were in the infirmary in the aft end of the ship, and you had your Ovilus too, and you had her holding that, and she was holding this thing like, oh my God, it just said something, and but you inclusively had all the attendees in there too, and we had some captures. So that's a very active portion of the ship.
Yeah, we had Kennedy. We had one of the other things is down in the pool area in the dressing room. I actually had an EVP response of a shadow say, "Show no fear."
Yeah,
which was really super clear. We got the word Kennedy in the infirmary. We got Morse code. It's the whole ship is super active. Even when I first get to a location, I normally like to do an EVP session. I'll just put a recorder down and just set it and let it go while I'm putting things away.
Yeah.
I've gotten stuff on just a recorder, just saying hello, don't go, or stay.
Right. And it's very like time perfect of what you're asking or what's happening at that moment, or something's ready to leave with you, and then ready will come up or something. Some of those key words that can only be, a little bit more than coincidence on those.
Now, for investigating some of the locations, what type of gear do you prefer to use? Like you, Sophia, your wife, and so forth?
Well, it's kind of weird to say, is the one Sophia is really good at. And, we tend to, just go off. I'm a lay person. I don't have any gift or ability, and my wife and I don't either. But Sophia has some kind of thing where when it comes to dowsing rods that tend to have, like, we'll have our metal meters out. We'll have those with us. We prefer those too for some of the EMF. And then, of course, EVP verification, too, to go over later in post. But actually, they're on the spot. She'll have dowsing rods. And when you're on a ship, you're thinking, well, it's surrounded by water, And so, of course, aren't they going to point straight down and all this kind of thing? But it works off the electromagnetic field in a way that she can think questions. And, you'll see the sensor hits just start to come alive and things. And that's what Peter James could do. He could really communicate with Jackie and bring her about. And that's something not everybody can do when you're down there. It takes a certain gentle tone and things, or maybe just the awareness, they can pick up on that sensately, that he's generating that through his synapses, that he's open and ready to communicate, and they can feel that warmth, or almost like a moth to a flame. But she kind of has that where we've had sessions that have, been, by OC Soul Searchers. They posted a whole session with us, and and she'll have even the dowsers she'll hold, and then one will just start to point over to a member in the team, and she'll be like, it's over there by you, and right over the top of their head, just boom, on the outside of the hall, right over their top of the head, like a knock. And we've had things like that where, like, she'll ask certain things like, is this Alice? And then the sensors start coming alive, and then the Ovilus 2 that was there at the time said, from Greece, Greece. And then, is this Alice from Greece? And then you'll get yes. And so there's different things that, like, one night it could be, as you're mentioning, like millimeters, other days, heavy on the EVP. And then other times it's a combination of both to get the verification. But it tends to be the dowsing rods that she'll get a lot of yeses and nos and verifications to things that she starts throwing out there. Then we'll get everything starting to come alive. So it's interesting to watch in that realm.
And Scott, I mean, I've never actually asked you this either. When we investigate, we learn like techniques from each other. I'm just curious, and I've never asked you this, so this is kind of a fresh question. What kind of techniques did you learn while investigating with the Temperillis and Constantinos?
Well, the biggest thing I can say I've learned, because I believe there's no experts. There's always just a learning experience with this, and I'll learn every time I'm at a location, and I learn from everybody. The biggest thing I've learned is to have an open heart. Spirits were human at one point too, and to really listen to what they're trying to tell you is the biggest thing I could tell somebody. What I learned from Debbie is just to really listen. What I've learned from John and Shirley and Sophia is, if I ever have a question or I don't know something, I can always go and ask. And that's the same with you or Nikki or anybody that we know. And I'm very blessed to have that ability to be able to go to somebody that I can, if I have a question I don't know the answer to, I can say, hey, John, I'm having this issue. What should I do?
Yeah, that's where we've been fortunate too. That's the way Peter James was, and like even on his final tour, he gave out his home phone number, his personal email address, and said if there's anybody that has any questions regarding the afterlife or the paranormal, at any time call me. And that's what I like to be for people too, because we did go through a personal home haunting, and people did come forward and help us, and Debbie was one of those people that ultimately helped us with a few suggestions on how to clear what we had, or at least what happened was it was voyeuristic in nature, had it diminish in capacity of what it was actively like at the residence. So I mean, to have somebody do that for us, man, there's the pay it forward factor. So for Scott, I mean, there's some things that we're trying to get some responses on and things from other people that can help in a way. But yeah, I mean, he's somebody in the field that just actively pursues and is, I mean, completely respectful. That's what I've always admired about Scott, and that's why I think he gets so much activity, is because it's like Peter and like Sophia. He's got the nature too that he does get a lot of captures, I believe, because of the respectfulness and the time spent and the patience and everything of what he does on investigations. And then as his closeout too, the thanks he gives and generates and and reinforces and everything. I think it's just something that has brought about a lot of how he generates and captures activity.
Well, I mean, they say it all the time. The energy in which you put out there is energy in which you're going to receive. And I've seen it firsthand with Scott with his EVP sessions. He's putting out a lot of respect and a lot of positivity when he's doing it, and the response is back. I mean, there's been a few times where there are some negative things, but it wasn't very prevalent. You know what I mean? It wasn't all the time, and it only happened here or there.
Yeah, or concern of attachment, or right.
But to go back to what you had said, Debbie was one of those, was a good friend, and I would call her down near family. She would call constantly, and that's where I learned how to investigate was from Debbie. The questions, how to ask them, just being able to communicate. It's hard to explain because it's one of those things you pick up from just the time you spend with each other and the vibe you pick up from each other and from the location. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a collective that I think that brings them about too. That is like is the events and how kind of familial we are when we all get together, even beforehand, looking forward to getting to the location and then being there, and that's kind of the camaraderie of being together at these locations. And that's where sadly we no longer have Debbie in play with that. But it's just one of those things that there was a whole unit. I guess in other realms they'd call it a covenant, or something in a positive white magical sense, but something that I think generates a collective of a ambience that goes on and then brings about more of a positive. And Debbie said on Sophia's show at different times we'd ask her, because I think it was really important for it to come about, and then she'd share with Sophia that, like, hey, don't ever always try laughter when you do sessions, because it brings about something in you, whether it's your synapses firing or an emotional setting that creates in the environment. Even in the most hardened locations she's been in, she'll tell a joke and then just see what happens. And even the guy that was testing her or doing whatever she could feel, or the dankness in a room and that absence of sound and that depth that starts to come in a really heavy environment, she'll feel it start to loosen up and lighten. And even in the most hardened person, okay, that they'll work with you, or something that just is a little different or gets them to back off in a certain respect. So laughter, she felt, just really generate a lot in our group when we get together, or just at events and just the whole collective. There was always kind of that environment going on.
And I've noticed actually with the subject of investigating in locations, you guys haven't really come across anything that was negative or malevolent in any aspect so far. You know what I mean? And that's a good thing. I think it has to do with the energy you're putting out.
Yeah, for me as a parent, that's always something that's important too. I can imagine what would happen if something happened to Sophia while we're both there and there's nothing we could do, or a psychic attack or anything of that type. But we've been, knock on wood, fortunate as far as that goes. But again, we picked the key locations that have been something that La Prisma Mission, when Sid and Mary actually invited us there, that was a location that, hey, this is, there was Native American massacres with the Spanish and just a lot of things going on there, but there was a lot of padres and a lot of, positive aspects that went on as an established mission. And it was just one of those places that, we tried out firsthand initially before. These are locations that we go to first, and then I've been to Linda Vista a few times before. Sophia came there for an event, and then we had Empath Don Staggs walk us around and say, okay, let's stay over this way, because you get different vibes. So again, we've had that protective buffer zone that not everybody has. But then again, it probably is just that collective of who we have. And I think that's happened in the field, whereas before it was a little bit more people grew up never, or outwardly to this day, wouldn't be able to talk about these things. But in the last 10, 15 years, it's become something that even people we didn't expect that would, friends of ours and other people we know, other people that are just, local people from retail stores, like a retail store that my wife and I had, to people that are millionaires that talk to us, and they'll start sharing stories. And you'll be surprised who talks to you now about paranormal that you never would have thought would even address it or think you were a kook. Now it's open. So I think there's a vibe and a collective that's out there that's so much more, helps in the investigation, and maybe takes away from that predatory thing of some of those that are out there that are the small percentage of the spirits that you end up with at these locations. There's a little bit more of they maybe can sense the collective that's there, and the openness, and that we see you. You don't have to pretend you're something you're not. And as in life, so in death, if you had these predatory instincts or aspects, we're fortunate enough not to have anything like that, but we haven't put ourselves at some of those locations. Someday Sophia's going to be old enough, and we just want to give her all the tools and everything necessary, that if she goes forward to some of those places, that she's protected as possible.
Yeah, I mean, 40, 50 years ago, the places that, we're investigating were prevalent for people being put in there for talking about seeing spirits or seeing things. the asylums or stuff like that. So it's kind of ironic in a way that it's kind of come full circle in some aspects.
Yeah. And maybe it is bringing a lot of that communication, and as Scott does, respectfully ending and closing out with thanks and a lot of appreciation. That maybe it's something that they feel they're confused, as Peter mentions in his book, by that intoxication or that thrust from life into afterlife because of a sudden tragic, violent, or untimely passing. That they're confused, and then maybe it does lead to something that over time they're become something different, and find that other sense on the earth plane, or at least feel it sensately. But there's a lot more locations today. If you look at Fukushima with radiation and a lot of mass deaths that happen from the tsunamis, or Badachi and a lot of places, there's places around this world that are just starting to open up to the field that are going to be in the future that on a mass scale. So there, you tend to think of castles, and you tend to think of ghost towns in a lot of different places around the U.S. and around the world. These are new places that are just starting to open. There's going to be major masses of people that need a collective and a need to move on, that are in that same state of afterlife or thrust into it. So, I mean, it's opened up a lot of things around the globe that I think collectively there's new hotbeds of places that need a lot of attention.
And Scott, you're coming up to go into the Stanley. Have you, John? Have you been to the Stanley already, or it's not a location you've been to?
No, I've never been to the Stanley. That's one that again, if there's anything else, and Scott is kind of a baseline too for a lot of things. If we were ever to go there, if it's a place that Sophia'd want to go, it'd see how other people have gauged it or know about first, or if something new's been introduced, kind of like the Queen Mary we've learned. If there's something from a lot of the people going to a lot of different places that haven't properly left something behind. But I mean, just curiosity factor. Never been there, but I'd love to go. Definitely.
And you're going to be going there actually Wednesday or Thursday. You leave. And I don't know if you'd like to talk a little bit about it. So.
Yeah, I'm leaving Wednesday the 16th and returning on the 21st. I'm hoping to be doing some interviews there. I've actually been talking with the vice president of the Stanley Hotel. So we were trying to iron out some last minute details, but it looks like we're going to be able to do some interviewing there. We're going to be able to do some photos and some other things, some live streaming. So hopefully everything works out. But this is paranormal, so we never know what tomorrow will bring. So I'm very excited to be able to do this. I can't thank Nick Roth and Nick Roth Tour for the availability to do this. So I've been able to attend Nick's events for the last, I'd say, 3 years. 2 years now. I did Mansfield. I've done Stanley, Queen Mary, and there's a host of other locations that I've actually been to. Like I said, if you want more information about the website, or even Dom's upcoming event that he has coming up in New York, it's posted on myparanormalcorner.com. You can actually check it out. There's a lot of content about the ghost host. There's content there about live paranormal. So just go down there, check it out. And if you have any questions, there's an email box, and then I'll get back to you.
Yeah, Scott's website has tons and tons of information, and it's honestly it's awesome because you're out there, you're trying to help and support other individuals as well. You're putting findings out there, but like there's Vanessa Hagel, Nikki Paranormal, Live Paranormal, the Ghost Host, even us, Upstate Supernatural. There's so many other channels and other websites that are linked into it, and it makes it a very awesome gift for the field. So I'd personally like to thank you for doing what you're doing with it.
I can't thank you enough, Dom, and Sophia, and John and Shirley, and Live Paranormal. But one of the reasons why I did it was because I want to give the platform for the average ghost hunter or ghost investigator or paranormal investigator. a platform to be able to go onto and say, I have some evidence, I'd love to share it. Here's a platform for you. So that way everyone gets that chance to find out about each other. It's a way that people can network with each other. I don't find there's a whole lot of networking going on with Inside the Paranormal. It's always trying to top the other person versus it being a networking.
They're closely guarded, yeah.
Yeah, no, I've definitely seen that as well. And John, you've been within the field about 9, going on 10 years. And you've worked with like Ghost Adventures, you've worked with some notable psychics and so forth. Have you noticed, honestly, just within the last few years, like a difference within the field of how it's more focused on people trying to either like get into TV shows or trying to form some kind of fame?
Yeah, we see Sophia's a good gauge of that because, we don't let her see a lot. It's not that we don't let her, but like you tend not to want her to see a lot of the infighting, a lot of things going on. So some of those discussions when some member of a group calls us about some other member in a group and that kind of thing, or they did this and they did that, it still goes on. It's one of those things that, and we've had this discussion on Sophia's show. We've had some guests on where we talked about kind of a water hole that's drying up. It's almost like the metal years going into the grunge years. You're seeing a shift and a change, or you don't want to see that for this field. You want to see the sustainability. You want to, even so, some people are still knocking some of the shows and the approaches and techniques. Peter was like that about, and one particular show had asked him to be on the Queen Mary. They got somebody else, and the show ended up being a disaster. I think we might all know what that is, and that was about 10 years ago. And so he just had a feeling, being a psychic that he is, so he turned it down. It ended up being an abject disaster. But the thing is, he went on, do you know what this did? Do you know what these, that? And I told Peter, I said, well, look, that show is keeping this field going, even though, okay, yeah, you got the groups up there, for the metal thing, there's these groups that are pogoing up and down, they're doing this. Yeah, but they're keeping that sound and that frame going, everything, otherwise in 10 years, we may not even be here talking about any of this, but these shows are going, they're creating other shows, so there is that going. But for all of us that are seeking a truth, and for, a lot of these groups that are coming out there and trying to be the paranormal rock stars of, their teams are just, back to back, and they're just got this edge and this whole thing going. And, I get that. And, but it is creating a wave of a sustainability of this field going and perpetuating, because everybody's looking for a truth ultimately. So that's what the important facet is, as far as thinking back about Peter being kind of like the early Led Zeppelin or the bluegrass before the Led Zeppelin leading into something else. He's somebody that had a foundation, and it's good to look back at that foundation, how they did their approaches, and take a step back at some of these things and not venture forward with some of the sensationalism. But when somebody needs help and they go to this field and they go on Facebook and they're looking for a paranormal team, and their wall going up and down is nothing but one person blasting another person, and that person saying, here's the evidence they stole from me, and this, you know what? They want help. They're a family. They have a negative activity. They have a kid with psychic ability issues that needs somebody to talk to, and everybody's wall is filled with blasting each other. That's not what this field is about. That's what I hate seeing going on, is the advent of just social media just really climaxing into a point of people trying to gain relevance at the same time that are realizing, hey, nobody's looked at our site in the last 3-4 months. We need to do something else, to remove that mindset. Just, it's hard to see that ever happening, because so many people are so bombastic that come out into any arena, and that unfortunately is the majority of them, is it gives everybody a voice that, you may be tech savvy, but socially you're not that great at what you do when you're posting stuff. So for people that really need help, they need to find those people. And I mean, people like Scott, like I, and other people, and keeping Peter in mind, is just some of those people that are the foundation work, really finding those people and getting them to the sources they need in their areas. And that's where, I find great solace in Sophia's show, is like she's had I mean, now in the hundreds of paranormal investigators, investigative teams all across the nation, all across the world, even, that people can find a good fit for them. They can find, okay, oh, she'll ask certain questions. And that's a big thing that we always go over is protection on investigations, or is something that they can do to empower themselves before somebody can get to them for the help that they need. Just little, they could seem like Band-Aid solutions, but things that empower them or keep them sustained and protected until they get the help they need. That's what we can provide through Sophia's show. And that's what I like to see more of in the field, is a return to some of that innocence of everybody just collectively getting together, not all that other stuff that you're mentioning too, the shows, and it's been brought up on Sophia's show that it's almost like the producers do them. It's not necessarily them doing it, or like, hey, let's bring in Meatloaf and Gilbert Gottfried and all these different, and Flava Flav, and do EVP sessions. It's like, what do you think you're gonna get from that? So it's what the producers push on them, that it leads to the jumping of the shark and all that kind of stuff. But as long as it's something that keeps the field moving forward, you have that balance of the respectfulness and everything of people finding who they need to find. But then the producers will do that to them. It's we compared it to like the crocodile hunter. It's like, well, get closer to the thing. Get closer. Then what happens. It's just like they push these people. Let's try to get you in a. Let's take it from 72 hours to, how about, 3 weeks, you're at a location, or, it's like at one point they have to know themselves, hey, I got to stay grounded and protected. These people have done it enough that, like, fortunately, but if anybody new comes into the arena at that point forward, it could get real scary and real dark for them. But they know what they're doing, and so fortunately we're seeing that direction. That good, we're on a good solid ground here for them, because they know what they're venturing into and how to ground themselves, stay protected. But at the same time, everybody's got to, find that help for the people that need it and everything too. But I like to see the field moving forward, definitely.
Yeah, there's been monstrous advances in technology within just the last 5 years. So I mean, to see kind of where the field is going right now, there's so many advances, and then
it's an exciting time. Yeah.
And then sometimes, especially with the social media, it's kind of knocks you back down. It's like, come on, guys. Like, there's so many cool different inventions and devices that are coming out that are pretty fascinating. You know what I mean? That can actually, for instance, like the Kinect software. I mean, that's been out with the 360, but, where it shows a stick figure and everything else. I mean, that's technology within the last 5 years that is absolutely crazy to think 10, 15, 20 years ago that existing. It wasn't a probability.
Right. And amazing results too so far. So it's great to see that, and new locations coming up. So what Peter could show you about the Queen Mary, someday we're going to learn for the Queen Mary too. That's going to be a ship that's along the same realm. So what moves into the future in anticipation of what can be there? Just having somebody move on and things of that type. It's good to see that collective and people, pay that type of respect and attention and not get so caught up in a lot of the other things, definitely.
And I'd like to thank both you guys for being on, and I kind of want to give you guys a second so that you guys can let everybody know where they can find you, find information about you, find how to contact you if they'd like to talk more with you. And John, if you don't mind starting.
Yeah, I brought up a page here too because I'm trying to remember all of Sophia's. But yeah, Sophia definitely sends everybody her best, and we'll reschedule Sophia. She's just under the weather right now. And but yeah, she's got the Ghost Host show Saturdays on liveparanormal.com. It's 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. UK, which is why it's one of the highest rated shows, is because we get a lot of people that are just now laying out their cables and cords and everything that are setting up for investigations that have the Ghost Host playing over in England or, in Greenwich Mean Time location. So she has a lot of dual time frames that other people that tend to think, oh, I want my broadcast at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. They're not reaching a lot of those markets, or they have to catch them in archive shows. So yeah, that's the Ghost Host show on liveparanormal.com. And yeah, she's going to be celebrating 5 years of broadcasting in June. And so there's going to be a big celebration show coming up. But also, too, you can like the ghost host, Sophia Temperilli, on Facebook, her fan page, because we post the guests as we learn of them real time there. And that way, we don't inundate the site with a lot of other things, so people can see who's coming and going on as guests. And also, too, she's on Twitter, Instagram. Her name's real long, so she has to shorten it. She drops an L in Temperilli, so it's at Sophia Temperilli, and also on Snapchat and Tumblr, Sophia Temperilli with one L. So Sophia Temperilli, and also on YouTube by search field, the ghost host Sophia Temperilli. And it has a lot of her interviews from past events. You could see her when she's like 12 years old interviewing Ben Hansen when he was, on Fact or Fake Paranormal Files and a lot of other things. And so it's kind of a little trip back in time seeing some of her YouTube and things too. So that's all her sites. And yeah, again, Peter James' book, Heaven Can You Hear Me, available on Amazon. And yeah, it's great to keep Peter's memory alive, and I like to see that's where I've had Sophia, with her show, it's kept Peter's memory alive too, because I get to promote Peter's book and his legacy, and we'll have anniversary shows about Peter's passing and a lot of people calling in, and so it's been great in that respect.
And Scott, if you could let everybody know about My Paranormal Corner.
Yeah, you can find out more information about My Paranormal Corner at www.myparanormalcorner.com. A little bit about me, the ghost host, Nikki Paranormal, Live Paranormal. There's a link to each location site. Some of the locations I will be updating in the next 2 weeks as contracts I can sign out. I'll be able to release the names of the locations and how long I'm going to be there. So you just got to stay tuned. You never know what's going to happen. I want to thank Dom from Upstate Supernatural for all the support each and every day. It means a lot, and the same with Nikki and Jenna and everybody that's there. I can't thank you all enough.
And I'd like to personally thank both you guys for being on. It was definitely a great time getting to learn a little bit more about you, John. And you can find out more information about Upstate Supernatural if you just go upstatesupernatural.com. You can subscribe to Upstate Supernatural through YouTube, through Facebook, and we do have a sister channel now. It's upstateghost.tv, which has all our interview shows, which is linked into that as well. And you can check out interviews with John, Scott Litaea, Interview the Ghost Hunter, Interview the Skeptic. Our paranormal stories, parapanel discussions are all on upstateghost.tv. And I'd like to thank everybody. Hope you had a great time with the show, and hope to catch you later. Have a beautiful night and or beautiful weekend. It's actually in the afternoon now. I'm used to doing it at night. But have a great day, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Dom. Thanks, guys.